Hey, greetings. How are you doing on this Monday, a new week of the Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central? Uh, Always a busy time with the Cardinals when one season ends and the offseason begins. And I'm really looking forward to the offseason. So, welcome. We'll talk about some of that today. So, welcome to the Bernie Show on STL Sports Central, as I already mentioned, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right. I'm Bernie Miklasz. You might know me. I've been writing and talking about St. Louis area sports, including the colleges, since 1985. I do 5 videos and write 5 columns each week here on STL Sports Central. And I join Randy Carricker on his show at least once a week. You can catch me frequently on KMOX at all hours. And I do a weekly Cardinals podcast, Seeing Red, with my friend Will Leach. In fact, we recorded one this morning, Monday, September 29th. That'll be available for you by the time you see this. By the time this one is online, the Bernie Show, I'm sure that the Seeing Red video podcast will be on there as well. I also am a weekly guest of Katie Wu on the Cardinal Territory video and podcast. And I want to thank you all for your support very, very much. Very grateful. All right, today's topic. The Cardinals just completed arguably their worst 3-season stretch since the late 1990s, but I'm going to introduce something that tells you actually this could have been their worst 3-season stretch since the mid-1950s, and I'll explain. And yet, when we're talking about historically bad 3-season stretches, right? This one that just was completed, 23 to 25. And trust me when I tell you, it's historically prominent for the wrong reasons. And yet, I got to fuss a little. I'm sorry, but I do. There are people out there who still don't believe. They either don't believe or they won't believe that the rebuild is coming, the rebuild is arrived, and the rebuild is necessary. Really? After a 3-season stretch that featured a .477 winning percentage, that ranked 22nd overall in majors and 11th among the 15 National League teams. A rebuild that should have started after the Cardinals finished 20 games under 500 in the 2023 season. You know, and it wasn't just the 3-year record that was 22 games below 500. This is the one that just kicks me, man. The worst part of this, and it tells you how truly bad they were, even though their record was better than it should have been. More on that later. The worst part of the last 3 seasons, the Cardinals had a minus 222 run differential over the last 3 seasons. That's really bad. I mean, I'm not going to say that's Colorado Rockies bad or Pittsburgh Pirates bad, but that's really bad. By Cardinal standards, it's historically bad, and I haven't even completed my full research on this. Now, that might be a nerd thing that interests me the more than you. You know how I am, but I'm trying to put into some perspective how bad, these last 3 years were. No, I'm not saying, again, the Cardinals are like the dregs of baseball, like an embarrassment to the sport. I'm not saying that. But by Cardinal standards, this was a long way down, right? A minus 222 run differential over the last 3 years. That's worse than any of the other 3 straight bad seasons going back nearly 70 years. And I'm even going to go deeper once I get the time. Maybe for my column, I'll put that in there. But at least this, in terms of run differential over a 3-year period, this goes back at least 70 years. I think it goes back longer than that. Yeah. And I'll get to that in a bit. But I want to return to my first question. No rebuild, Bernie. Come on. You don't have to do it, Bernie. Not necessary, Bernie. Really? Come on. You're not serious, right? You think the Cardinals in their current state, especially after hiring Chaim Bloom, who was hired specifically for the reason of rebuilding, you think the Cardinals in their current condition can move right up on the overall major league standings in 2026 just by, I don't know, you put in a new toilet, you get a fresh coat of paint, redo the walls. Maybe if you got a little extra money, you replace some of that old wallpaper. Got a few shingles on the roof that need your attention. Fix a few shingles. Spruce up that landscaping. Yeah, you'll look so much better for doing all that. I mean, really, are you serious? You think that's what it is? The last 3 years haven't told you anything? Problems are pretty serious, which is why they hired Bloom first to put into motion the upgrading and modernization of the minor league and player development system. And that is well on the way. See, this is why you made the hire. You brought him in because that was step one. Now it's on to the major league club. A little history. You know, we talk about the Cardinals in 2016, 17, 18, 3 years they didn't make the playoffs. Now we talk about them. I'm guilty of this too. Don't get me wrong. I am absolutely guilty of this too. It's okay to mention that those teams did not make the playoffs, but that was actually a pretty good team. It really was. If you just add up the 3 years, and again, no playoffs, that's a pretty big minus. But it wasn't, that doesn't mean they were a horrible team or like a really troubling, weak and in trouble team. Over those 3 seasons, 2016, 17, 18, the Cardinals had a .529 winning percentage that ranked 8th in the majors. And their run differential over the 3 years was a positive 141. They outscored their opponents by 141 runs. Those 2016, 17, 18 teams ranked 9th in runs scored and 11th in runs allowed over the 3 seasons. So when we talk about the sorriest 3-season stretch of Cardinals baseball, those Cardinals managed by Mike Matheny the most of the time, and then Mike Schilt basically the second half of 2018, they do not belong in the discussion of the worst Cardinal teams over a 3-year stretch that we can remember. They do belong on a list of teams, Cardinals teams, that didn't make the playoffs for 3 straight years. But those are 2 different things. In any other kind of year, at least 1 or 2 of those teams would have made the playoffs because they did a lot of things well. They just had some better teams. Some better teams got the playoff spots. That's all. So here's what we have. The 1997 through 99 Cardinals had a .475 winning percentage that ranked 18th among the 26 teams that were in existence at the time. But I would say even though that 3-year period there was produced a winning percentage, it was 2 points less. Come on now, at least the Cardinals fans had fun with the entertaining Mark McGwire home run blastoff and a lot of other really good offensive players. And despite finishing 23 games under 500 over those 3 seasons, the Cardinals scored enough runs to where they had a +20 run differential over those 3 seasons. So that's not nearly as bad, even though the record was worse. It's really not as bad in just the overall quality of things as we've seen over these last 3 seasons, the 3rd season ending on Sunday at Wrigley Field. Now, the 1988 to 1990 Cardinals, and I covered them and wrote a lot about them. It was the end of the Whitey Herzog era. They had a .474 winning percentage that ranked 19th among the 26 teams at that time. The worst aspect of those teams, 88 through 90, was a putrid offense that scored the fewest runs in the majors over those 3 seasons. I mean, there was nothing going on, right? And the run differential was pretty awful at a -130 over the 3 seasons. But 130 ain't nearly as bad as -222, which is what this current team has done over the last 3 years. All right. Then you go back a little bit longer in time. 2 more things to mention. 1978 through 1980 Cardinals. Those teams had a .470 winning percentage, ranking 18th among the 26 teams that were in existence during those years. The offense was 15th in runs scored. The pitching was 15th in runs scored. Now, here's the weird thing. .470 winning percentage, worse than the winning percentage of the 2023, 24, 25 Cardinals. However, the weird thing is those 78, 79, 80 teams as a 3-year block, they were a combined +9 in run differential. I mean, how could they be above, they'd be on the positive side in run differential? I don't know, but it is true. It happened. Finally, the 1954 to 56 Cardinals. I'm thinking when I was starting to look at them, I was looking at these 3-year stretches. I only went back this far, okay? I'm sure there's some more I could go to, and I do want to get to the bottom of the worst 3-season run differential in franchise history. But from 1954 to 56, the Cardinals were pretty terrible. They posted a .466 winning percentage over the 3 years. There were only 16 major league teams at that time. And those Cardinals over the 3 years ranked 13th in winning percentage among the 16 teams. With all of that losing, those mid-1950s Cardinals had a minus 141 run differential. That's really bad, especially when you consider that they were still playing 154 games a year, Major League Baseball teams during that period. It switched to 162-game season until 1961. So the run differential probably would have been worse if we prorated over 162 games. But even then, the 23 to 25 Cardinals could be the worst of the bunch because, excluding 2016, 17, 18 Cardinals who had a winning record over the final, over their 3 seasons, pardon me. I realize, yes, that the 477 winning percentage that this current team's had over the last 3 years was the best of the others on this list. But none of those teams were close to having a whopping negative of 200 minus 222 runs being outscored by over the 3 seasons. And these last 3 teams were bad and boring. They really had a record better than they should have. And I've talked about this a lot. I don't care what the deniers say. I got the facts on my side. The reason why the Cardinals' record over the last 3 seasons, especially the last 2, wasn't much worse is because Oli Marmol knows what he's doing in running a bullpen. And again, the facts support this conclusively. The way he's handled the bullpen specifically over the last 2 seasons, because of that, the 24 and 2025 Cardinals were 2 games under 500 across the last 2 years. I'm not saying that's a reason for confetti. Not a talented team, not dripping with talent or depth or starting pitching or power or speed or base stealers, right? Not a good team, not a lot of talent there. And the fact that they were that close to 500 surprises me because went to Clay Davenport's site. He's an excellent analyst. And because of run differential and other underlying factors, including schedule strength, the 24 and 25 Cardinals won 11 more games than they should have over the 2 seasons. Instead of being 150 and 173, the last 2 Cardinals teams were 161 and 163. Either way, not good, but I'm making a point here. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. But they had the bullpen to turn what should have been a lot of losses or potential losses into wins, and that's reflected by the run differential, the bad run differential, the last 3 years, 2 years the sample size, I made the point about the bullpen. But anyway, and this is exactly why incoming president of baseball operations, Chaim Bloom, submitted a comprehensive rebuilding plan when he made a presentation to the DeWitts before the final decision was made to hire him to take over the minor league player development project, and then as incoming president of baseball operations in the build up to 2026. Ownership embraced it just as they should have. Now, listen, I know that I've reported this many, many, many times, and I know exactly why Chaim Bloom was brought in here, because the player development system, especially on the pitching side, was in bad shape, and a lot had been neglected, and the Cardinals were way behind the industry standards. So that was the number one project to begin with. And that's why Bloom focused mostly on that this past season, as he should have. But I'm not sure why, given the decline of the Cardinals, the obvious decline of the Cardinals, and the fact that the DeWitts went as far as to bring someone in who is absolutely a rebuild specialist and very good at it. I'm talking about his work with Tampa Bay, but even if you look at his rosters, the players that he drafted and acquired in Boston, he got fired because the owner traded Mookie Betts and really didn't let Chaim Bloom do his job. That ain't going to happen here. This Red Sox team is going to be playing the Yankees in the wild card round in the American League this week. They got Chaim Bloom guys all over that roster, including their best starting pitcher, Garrett Crochet, who was drafted by the White Sox, but the Red Sox traded 3 players drafted by Bloom when he was there to get Garrett Crochet. And there are other examples. again, he knows what he's doing about improving a farm system and rebuilding in terms of churning it forward with really good young players that they've drafted. And that's why the DeWitts were attracted to him. And they should have been. I mean, do you not want smart people running this thing, or at least a cut above what they've been getting? John Mozeliak had a terrific 18-year run, but things just got kind of sloppy at the end. That's all. Little negligent, let things get outdated. We know all that. So from an ownership management standpoint, if I could ask you this, after he hired Chaim Bloom, and after people like me explained many times what his background is, what his specialty is, and why the DeWitts wanted him, I mean this sincerely. I'm just confused why anyone, because this happens all the time. People hear the word rebuild and say, what do you mean rebuild? They don't need a rebuild. I don't get it. As soon as they hired Chaim Bloom, the rebuild was underway, okay? It already started. It's going to go deeper as they get into the cycle preparing of 2026, for 2026. And, also from an ownership management standpoint, the Cardinals had to stop deluding themselves into thinking they could fix their many serious problems by doing a little tuck pointing, It's like, well, why don't we, there's that one window unit air conditioner that's leaking a little bit. Let's go down to let's go get another one. Get them for $200. Is that what you wanted? I don't think so. As if the problems could be solved by wasting, from the Cardinals standpoint, by wasting even more money on mediocre free agents, or staying with mediocre players, and on top of that, giving them contract extensions to be stuck with them longer than they needed to be stuck with them longer. You want that? I don't know why you would. I don't think you do, actually. Rebuild's okay. Got to get this thing straightened out. This is not a microwave job, right? Ain't no microwave popcorn here, all right? As I've said many, many times, just like Bernie being outside with the big green egg and putting brisket on, and it's going to take about 8, 10, 12 hours, depending on how big it is. And you're going to go low and slow, and that thing, when it's done, it's going to be succulent. You don't quick fire like a brisket. You don't quick fire a big old pork butt, right? This ain't, taking one of those like little lunch things you take into work. It's covered with with basically saran wrap. Some kind of like chicken and rice thing, and you put it in the microwave at work. No, it's not that. It's not that. It's comprehensive. It's why the DeWitts hired Chaim Bloom. By now, there should be no confusion about what is underway and what's only going to proceed with more speed, not speed in terms of conclusion, but more speed in terms of activity. And when I return for my second segment of Friday's, it's not Friday, it's Monday's Bernie Show, sorry, goofball, I'll talk about what's going wrong for the Cardinals. And later on, I'm going to look at some questions about the upcoming season, just a few to start, because we're going to have more later. But first, I have some great news for sports fans in the St. Louis area and across the state of Missouri. And if you were like me before last weekend, I'll give you an example of what DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, can do once it officially is open in the state on December 1st. But for example, I'll just give you an example. I thought it was a joke that the Fighting Illini were getting 7.5 points at home against USC, with a coach like Lincoln Riley spent the week whining about, how we got to travel to the Midwest. Oh, I can't believe we're starting this game so early. We're not used to that. Anyway, I left and I said, man, these people are putting the money in on USC. They really underestimate Brent Bielema, the coach, and how tough that Illinois team was. Yeah, they had a nightmare game in losing to Indiana. I had no doubt they would bounce back, and I had no doubt, even if they lost it, the Fighting Illini, tougher than USC, and they would find a way certainly to cover the 7 or 7.5, depending where you shop. And if DraftKings Sportsbook, their app was open for business here in the state, I would have been all over that. And I will be all over stuff like that in the future. When DraftKings Sportsbook app opens here legally in the state on December the 1st. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, why do I have to wait till the sidelines, till December 1st? Because we're trying to get you ready, man. Get prepared. You can take the time right now between now and December the 1st. It's not that long from now, but you ever go online and you're trying to do a rush job, you put something off, and then you're like, oh, I got this deadline today. Oh, I can do this today. Oh, I forgot. Let me try to figure this out. We're not building a rocket here, but I'm just saying, when you're trying to rush and get something done, it's silly when you can do it in advance. And I know this because I'm one of those people that waits too long and then I do it. So you can prepare now by signing up right now. And when we go live on December 1st, when it's time to make those legal wagers, new Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets just by placing a $5 bet. $5? Yep. That ain't even as much as a cup of overrated pumpkin spice latte at this time of the year, all right? DraftKings is the best. That's the other thing. That's the big thing. They are the best. You got live in-game betting. So if if you're watching a game like the other night, it looked like Virginia was going to really give Florida State a game, college football. You could have got online at that point and say, hey, the way this is going, because they'll update the odds during the game, and then you can jump on something that you like. So you got the in-game betting where you can react to events during the game. You can adjust, set yourself up better to win. And you can jump in the middle of the game. I just like that. That's a lot of fun too. The DraftKings Sports app has lightning fast payouts. None of this nonsense about waiting for 3 days for your money. And you got a lot of ways to get in the action because it's just a great sportsbook app at DraftKings. So there's no better way or better place for you to start. When we go live on December 1st, you're going to be betting with the DraftKings Sportsbook that's trusted by millions because it's safe and it's secure. It's got fast withdrawals. Everything you want and then some. So the rest is up to you. As far as picking the winner, that's your assignment. You got to do that. So here's the play. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You use the code STL Sports. And when we go live on December the 1st, a $5 bet turns into a $300 in bonus bets. That code is STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. STL Sports. Use that code. $5 bet gets 300 in bonus bets to you. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after they are issued. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Thank you, DraftKings. Let's get back to talking about the Cardinals making so many wrong turns and miscalculation that has led them to this rebuilding project that is absolutely necessary and long overdue. Now, I can hear you. I hear voices. What can I say? I try to take meds, but I hear voices. I'm just kidding. Hypothetically, I hear voices. I imagine what people might be saying, like, hold on now, Bernie, the Cardinals can make this right just by committing a lot more money to payroll. I've been saying this, Bernie, for a long time. Many of you have. It's okay. We all have our opinions. If that's what you think, that's what you think. But can you give me assurances of that? That everything can be fixed by immediately committing a lot more money to payroll? I mean, Chaim Bloom probably gives him a better shot at that, but Chaim Bloom and all his people are still really, really busy getting that minor league player development system 100% up and running, and it's doing really well, the early progress. But this whole thing about, well, you spend more, you'll be fine. Maybe there'll be a time for that, but you need to have different people doing the spending. And Chaim Bloom ain't doing that coming out of the gate. It's just not going to happen. No, I'm sorry. It's just not. And I know it's no fun because we can't sit there and put together here's my target list for major league free agents the Cardinals ought to sign before 2026. I mean, with all due respect, you can go ahead and do that, but it's a complete waste of the time because it ain't happening, period. In 2025, the Cardinals had a reduced payroll. Here's a little factoid now that the playoff field is set. Cardinals had a reduced payroll. In fact, they slashed their payroll by close to $40 million from the previous year, 2024. But even then, this year's Cardinals payroll was larger than 4 of the 12 teams that made the playoffs. Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Detroit. And actually, Seattle, which won the AL West, they were ranked 15th in payroll. And yeah, they were ahead of the Cardinals. But my point is, that was not exactly like a top 5, top 6 payroll team, right? More on that in a second. But the Cardinals actually spent more this year than the Brewers, the Reds, Guardians, and Detroit. I'm thinking that ought to mean something, right? 7 teams missed making playoffs despite spending a hell of a lot more money on payroll than the 2025 Cardinals. All 7 spent at least $221 million in salaries, topped by the Mets, who failed to hold on to the 3rd wild card spot, just choked it up. Even though the owner had spent just under $342 million on their 40-man competitive balance tax payroll this year. $342 million payroll. They got something in common with the Cardinals and their small payroll. Mets didn't make the playoffs either. The other 6 failures to make the playoffs were the Astros at payroll $245 million, the Braves and Rangers at $238 million, the Angels at $221 million, the Giants at $218 million, and the Diamondbacks at $213 million. They spent a lot more than the Cardinals. They didn't make it either. Up here. I may not have a lot of it. I'm talking about brains. Kind of helps you in baseball, though. Based on what the Cardinals have gotten from their investments over the last 3 seasons, where they have declined. The correct conclusion here, to me anyway, differs from what so many others seem to think. Given that the Cardinals have MLB's 22nd ranked winning percentage and a minus 222 run differential over the last 3 seasons, I'd say it's obvious to me that the Cardinals spent too much money on payroll. You go ahead and tell me that they got sufficient value for the dollars spent. The answer is they absolutely did not. Over the last 3 seasons, the Cardinals ranked 20th in runs, 22nd in homers, 23rd in slugging. It's even worse over the last 2 seasons when the Cardinals ranked 22nd in runs over those 2 seasons, 23rd in slugging, 26th in homers. Over the last 3 seasons, the Cardinals were 24th in adjusted ERA. Their starting pitchers were 25th in standard ERA and 26th in adjusted ERA. The bullpen and defense were terrible in 2023, but it was cleaned up and the bullpen got a lot better over the last 2 years. The Cardinals' stolen base game has been terrible, not taking advantage of the new rules and make it easier to steal base because they don't have enough speed, enough guys who can know how to steal bases. It's Victor Scott and then flip a coin for the most part. Their overall speed component is well below average. They don't have the kind of roster that can excel at small ball. They're just very limited in every way, except having a really deep and really effective bullpen the last 2 years. And they're getting the kind of even more power arms in the organization that'll keep that train moving. So all of this came to a head over the final 3 months of the 2025 regular season when the Cardinals were tied with the Pirates for the fewest runs scored in the majors, and they ranked 29th in homers, 29th in slugging, 29th in OPS. And the starting pitching was down in the bottom 3 or 4 in ERA. So that's a problem. When you don't have starting pitching, you don't have home run power, which also includes, by extension, doubles power, and you can't manufacture runs with your speed. Well, how do you win? What do you do with that? With those components, all of them lacking. It's talent. It's a roster problem. It's talent. It's depth. Where do you go with that combination? Near the bottom in offense and near the bottom in starting pitching. How are you supposed to build a playoff team with that? You can't. The answer is you can't. Not realistically. The Reds were able to get into the playoffs, but the Reds went 14-11 in September to do it. Not exactly, rolling a tank through the door to get in. I mean, they had to rely on the Mets continuing to vomit all over themselves up until the final Sunday. Here's the thing about power. I think it's sad. Other than Albert Pujols and this is going back a long, 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 long time. Only one Cardinal who was drafted and developed by the team, has put up at least 25 home runs in a season. Matt Carpenter did that twice. He clubbed 28 in 2015 and he hit 36 in 2018. They can't develop power hitters, or they don't draft them, or they don't pick the right guys. This season, 94 major league hitters cranked out at least 20 home runs. The Cardinals had one of those guys, Wilson Contreras, who had exactly 20. And Contreras wasn't drafted or developed by the Cardinals. He was signed as a free agent for 5 years, $87.5 million. You have Albert Pujols, who was one of the all-time greats, but you go from that to only having one guy over all this time, after Pujols left. And again, I'm not counting him in 2022. I'm talking about the young guys, the formative guys. So since Pujols, you've had one guy hit 25 or more home runs in a season that you drafted and developed. Were the Cardinals ever going to get around and maybe trying to address that? And maybe Randy Flores, who runs draft, did, because I think Joshua Baez, who was a second-round pick in 2021, he looks like he's figured everything out. I've talked about him a lot on here. He's a guy that's got big-time power. He can steal a lot of bases. But the other thing is his plate discipline this year, starting in high A and then even better at double A. His plate discipline was really, really strong. That is a huge development. So maybe he'll be the next one. And because of the organization's collapse in developing starting pitching, the Cardinals have spent too much time trying to find short-term starters, most of them inadequate, most of them not the answer, some of them really disappointing. The Cardinals they've wasted too much money on mediocre starting pitchers instead of putting a lot more money where they should have been putting it all along, spending and investing into your future, because your future, it'll catch up to the present, and then all of a sudden you got a lot of young pitchers that you can put to use and they'll help you. We saw that. What was it? I mean, you look at those 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 Cardinals, you even go up to 2019, Jack Flaherty having a great year. Cardinals just had a treasure trove of really good young starting pitchers, one after another. When's the last time that happened? What they should have been doing is putting a lot more money, instead of extending Miles Miklasz twice. They should have been they should have gone a new way in a much better direction with their pitcher development program. They let that slide. And I think that's the number one reason why they've been sliding as a team, as an organization over the last 3 years. So under Chaim Bloom and the people who recruited, let me do that again. Under Chaim Bloom and the people he recruited to modernize the draft system and minor league operation, the Cardinals have already made significant progress. Both Fangraphs and ESPN had St. Louis ranked in the top 10 of all major league farm systems in the updated ratings that were issued either in July or August. And a lot of independent talent evaluators say, boy, the changes the Cardinals made working with young pitchers, giving them new pitches to add to their repertoire, doing this, doing that. They have the technology now. They have the instructors now. They have the advanced thinking now. They got the technology now. It's already making a difference. But that should have been done a long time ago. And that's why you got to rebuild now, because as promising as a lot of the volume of quality starting pitching in the St. Louis system is on the rise, but it's not like it's all ready. It's not going to be ready, like fully ready in 2026. Injuries happen. You know how that is. You got to get even more and more and more, and you also can't rush them to the big leagues. And from what I'm told, Chaim Bloom believes in taking your time with young starting pitchers, not rushing them to fill some kind of need if it's going to cause them to maybe step back. And every young pitcher is different. I mean, seriously, it's a case-by-case thing. But I mean, as a general principle, I don't think he likes to rush starting pitchers that they think can be really, really great if you do it right as far as handling them. Don't want to put them on the express train, to the bullet train to the majors just to do it. So the fact that this farm system's already on the rise and the pitching is on the rise, it shows us something we should have already known. If you hire intelligent people and they go and hire other smart people and you invest the right amount of money in technology and smarter and better instructors and coaches and a forward thinking program put in place for all your prospects that is absolutely connected to what they're doing at the major league level instead of everybody doing it on their own. I mean, the lack of alignment has been preposterous around here between the minors and the majors. You put a forward-thinking program that emphasizes the right things, and you have your minor leagues and your major league team aligned, your prospects have a much better chance of coming to the majors at a more enhanced stage of development, and probably a better chance to be good and to stay good. Now, of course, I could be wrong, because maybe that money would have been better spent by, I don't know, maybe they could have given Miles Miklasz another contract on the way out. Right? Nah, I prefer Chaim Bloom. I prefer him. I'm laughing at myself. That's bad form. I prefer Chaim Bloom in a rebuild. Silly me. So what's next for the Cardinals? Some of the particulars. We don't have any answers because there's no answers right now, but we can speculate on a few things just to get started. And I got more things coming during the week. I'll get into this in the next segment, third and final segment of today's Bernie Show. But first, it's time for me to give the gentleman a little pep talk about BlueChew. BlueChew can help raise your game for those intimate, pleasurable times, special times with your partner. In short, Big Blue can power you up, guys. No need to hesitate. In short, just chew it and do it. I know what BlueChew has done for me, and I'm of Social Security age, and this is one of the reasons why I'm proud to talk about BlueChew with you, because I discover what it can do, and I want you to try to discover the same thing. But you got to make that effort. If you need a stronger bat, BlueChew's in the equipment room, so go get it. Home run. Haven't hit one of those in a while. Time to change that. BlueChew's the original brand offering chewable tablets for enhanced performance. You're going to get your first month of BlueChew free. Yes, I said free. You're just a few clicks away. You sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you are approved, you will receive your prescription at your doorstep in a few days. It's all done online, simple and private, nothing awkward. Just go get it. Try your first month of BlueChew free when you use the promo code Bernie. All you do is pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Bernie to get your first month free. The only cost to you is $5 shipping. No excuses. Go get it. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. All right, welcome back to the third segment on today's Bernie Show. I'm going to try to keep this one brief because I plan on going deeper into some of these other things as we go along. But I just had some preliminary questions. Will manager Oli Marmol be back for the final year of his contract? I would say book it. I would say this will happen. I would be shocked if he doesn't return. Bloom and Marmol have established a good relationship over the year. They talk frequently. They see things the same way, generally speaking, and a positive connection exists. Marmol, as the manager of the Cardinals, would know what to expect in sort of connecting and aligning what's going on in the field to what the front office vision for the future is. That tells me all I need to know. And by the way, he's got 1 year left. And if Chaim Bloom at some point doesn't like the way things are going in 2026, he can make a change. But I don't see any reason why. I don't think it makes any damn sense whatsoever to make a change now. And I think Marmol's done a good job with the rosters he's been given. And if you say, no, he hasn't, okay, then what you're telling me is you think John Mozeliak gave him some really good rosters to work with, huh? Anybody? Is that your take? I won't laugh. Anyway, number two, will current Cardinals be traded? Yeah. It's just a matter of how many. There's basically three categories as I see it. First category would be Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, and Wilson Contreras. They've got the no trade clause. If they waive their no trade protection and Chaim Bloom can find a good fit, I think all three of them will go. There's a lot of ifs there, but that's the point. We don't know for sure. But if there is the no trade lifted in Arenado's case, and maybe not lifted entirely, but lifted and opened in a big wave to include more teams, and if they all say, yeah, I'll go somewhere, I think they'll all be traded. The second category are the younger, established, and cost-controlled Cardinals, guys like Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson. We can include some pitchers in there too, like Matthew Liberatore, Michael McGreevy. They're not going anywhere. I'm not going to mention Andre Palante. Anyway, the most likely to be traded is Brendan Donovan, who's got the highest trade value for teams that are serious about contending for their shot at the World Series title in 2026 and 2027. And I'm talking about teams that just love having a left-handed hitter who can either coax walks, hit for some power, depending on the situation, but he can play 4 or 5 position and play them well. And that roster flexibility, there's a lot of value in that. So he's going to be a coveted guy. And unless the Cardinals plan to sign him to a long-term contract extension, and they do not, what's the point of keeping him? I mean, how stupid would you have to be to do that or to even advocate for that? That's what a rebuilding team does. Now, if you have a guy, let's say Ivan Herrera emerges next season as like a 40 home run guy. That's the different story because the Cardinals have not, first of all, he's under contract control for a much longer time. But the other thing is the Cardinals don't have power hitters. So if he's a power hitter, you keep him. Plus, he's a power hitter, draws walks, and doesn't strike out much. So Donovan's under control for team control for 2 more seasons. He won't be eligible for free agency until after the 2027 season. So the other thing about Burleson, well, why would I have him on the list? I like Burley. Don't get me wrong. Of course, some local media, as is the history, they've turned him into, I think the Cardinals got the next Babe Ruth there. I'm being facetious, but I've told you a million times, we all tend to overrate Cardinals players because the ones that are pretty good or good, there's not enough of them, so we make them more than what they are. And it doesn't matter what I think about that, you think about that. The sad thing is the Cardinals have thought that in the past. They overrate their own guys, and I have said that for years and years and years. But that said, with MLB teams starting to put more emphasis on contact skills in this era of strikeout, power pitching, high strikeout totals, all that, Burleson's got added value. I think a lot of people would be interested in him for that. And his power is solid. He's a 20 to 23 home run guy. Nothing wrong with that. Hits for high average. He doesn't walk enough, but he doesn't strike out much either. I'd say the longest shot to be traded, because I consider Ivan Herrera an untouchable. Longest shot to be traded, and I would say, well, is there a long shot, Bernie? I said, well, if I'm going to name one, it would be Mason Wynn. Now, I'll explain why. I'm not down on Wynn at all, but there's a reason. I think, well, maybe they'd have an open mind. They'd see what's out there. Not that they're looking to trade him, but if they get calls. I don't think he'll be traded, but let me get to this in a minute. The third category of trade candidates has 2 players, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. Will Bloom explore trades for them? Will he just say, like for Walker, no, it's time. I got to get him out while he still has trade value. Will he say the same about Gorman, or is he inclined to give Gorman another shot at this because the Cardinals are so sorely lacking in power? And he did have 3 straight months he was really good from late May to late August, and then he fell apart again. But the main point here with Walker and Gorman, I'm not advocating anything. I'm just explaining the situation. In 2026, we'll begin a deeper rebuild, and unproven players usually get another chance to show that they belong. As for Gorman, he had those 3 consecutive months that were really good, which is a lot more than we can say for Jordan Walker. I also think maybe you put Victor Scott II in there, the center fielder. But the question there is, okay, well, who plays center field? They don't have anybody lined up. I think Nathan Church could play center field and handle it well. And I think he'll hit better than he has shown. But again, something tells me they're going to stay with Scott because look, his plate approach needs work, but this guy works his tail off on this, and he's elite center fielder, and he's your only base stealer. So I wouldn't envision them trading him, but I'm just trying to cover everything, right? The goal for Bloom here is to collect as many prospects as possible in trades. The more you collect, the better the odds of having some of them pay off. It's as simple as that. If you acquire 5 prospects, all right, what are your odds that 1 or 2 of them pay off in a big way? I don't know, but if you have 10 or 12 prospects, do you have more of a chance that maybe a couple more of them will pay off? I would say, yeah. What about the untouchables? The one absolute untouchable among hitters is Ivan Herrera. The reason I talked about that, you don't trade power that's cost controlled for a long time. He's just a good hitter, man. The only reason I don't put Wynn on this list is because of potential concerns internally over his knee being able to hold up over time. See, that's the one X factor that I just keep an eye on. But Marmol is Wynn's biggest fan, so I'd be surprised if there's any movement. And I love Mason Wynn, don't get me wrong. But if the Cardinals have looked at all the medical reports and if they're concerned, hey, is this going to be a recurring thing, that kind of thing? I mean, he's already had a knee surgery at 23. I could see, again, if you're asking me to think of a scenario where that might be entertained, that would be the scenario. But I'm not predicting it's going to happen. Other questions, will Randy Flores continue to run the draft? I would say so, but Chaim Bloom's going to be moving a lot more people into the front office operations, so Randy Flores is going to have plenty of help, and I'm sure he's gotten to know some of those guys. We know that he's gotten to know Rob Cerfolio. They worked very well together in the 2025 draft a few months ago. Any coaching staff changes? Not sure. I'm really neutral on the subject. I don't think they're going to make any at pitching coach or hitting coach, but you never know. How soon will Bloom hire a general manager? Are there any candidates? Well, one name to keep an eye on, as a couple other people have pointed out, is Carlos Rodriguez. 15 years he was with the Tampa Bay Rays, and part of that time, of course, he was a close associate of Chaim Bloom when they both were working there on their way up in terms of becoming front office prospects, guys who would lead teams one day. And curiously, Carlos Rodriguez has got a great rep in the business. He recently stepped down, and according to Mark Topkin, who covers baseball, he's great at that, down in St. Pete since the Tampa Bay area, since the Rays came into existence. He's been the beat writer. He said that Rodriguez recently stepped down, saying that it was time for a new challenge. Rodriguez said that. Well, I'd say he's got a new challenge in St. Louis if Bloom's looking for a general manager, right? Rodriguez has got a strong background in international scouting and operations. He's also well connected throughout the majors. He's done more than just international operations, a lot more. But that's one of his primary strengths, and the Cardinals need to do better in that area. Listen, there's going to be many more questions to come. This is just the start of what should be a very busy, active, a lot of movement in the offseason. I like that. That's entertainment. And it's right on time because of the Cardinals' glaring 3-season decline demands that this is about time they rebuild and do it the right way. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, leave your comments, support our sponsors. Special thanks to DraftKings and BlueChew for sponsoring the Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. That'll do it for me. Sorry I talked so long, but I was wound up. Be back tomorrow with you on STL Sports Central.